Imagine standing on an open field. Thousands of people around you are smiling, waving, and looking toward the sky. Children sit on their father's shoulders. Journalists prepare their cameras. Everyone is waiting to witness history. Then, out of the clouds, the largest aircraft ever built slowly appears. Nearly 3 football fields long, floating silently through the evening sky. It looks impossible, elegant, untouchable. People call it the future of travel, the safest way to cross the Atlantic Ocean. No one watching that day believes they are about to witness one of the most horrifying disasters in aviation history. Because in just a few moments, a single flash will transform the greatest airship ever created into a giant ball of fire. And in less than 40 seconds, everything will be gone. But even after nearly 90 years, one question still refuses to disappear. What really destroyed the Hindenburg? Before we uncover the truth, tell me in the comments, if you had been offered a ticket aboard the Hindenburg in 1937, knowing only what people knew at the time, would you have stepped on board or walked away? Now, let's travel back to the day the sky caught fire. Long before airplanes connected continents, before passengers could fly across the Atlantic in only a few hours, there was another vision of the future. A future where enormous flying ships floated gracefully through the sky. These incredible machines were called airships. Unlike airplanes, they didn't rely entirely on engines to stay in the air. Instead, they floated because giant gas-filled envelopes created enough lift to carry passengers, cargo, and even luxurious living spaces. For decades, Germany became the undisputed master of airship engineering. One company stood above all others, the Zeppelin Company. Founded by Count Ferdinand von Zeppelin, the company transformed what once seemed like fantasy into reality. By the early 20th century, Zeppelins had become symbols of German engineering excellence. They crossed countries, crossed oceans, and amazed millions wherever they appeared. Watching one glide across the sky was unlike anything people had ever experienced. They moved almost silently, slowly, gracefully, like floating cities among the clouds. While airplanes were still noisy, cramped, and considered dangerous, Zeppelins offered something completely different: comfort, luxury, and elegance. Passengers didn't simply travel, they experienced the journey. Inside, large observation windows stretched along the walls. Elegant dining rooms served fine meals. Comfortable cabins allowed travelers to sleep peacefully above the clouds. There were lounges, writing rooms, even smoking rooms specially designed to prevent fires. It felt less like an aircraft and more like a luxury ocean liner floating through the sky. By the 1930s, Germany wanted to build something even more extraordinary, something the world had never seen before. Not merely another Zeppelin, but the greatest airship in history. Construction began in Friedrichshafen, Germany. Engineers worked for years. Every detail pushed the limits of human engineering. The finished airship measured more than 804 feet in length, longer than the Titanic, longer than nearly every aircraft ever built. Its massive aluminum framework contained millions of cubic feet of hydrogen gas. 4 enormous diesel engines powered the giant through the skies. Despite its incredible size, it floated with remarkable grace. The airship received a name that reflected Germany's national pride: LZ-129, Hindenburg, named after former German President Paul von Hindenburg. When it was officially introduced, the entire world was stunned. Newspapers called it a miracle of engineering. Crowds gathered wherever it traveled. People stared upward in disbelief. Many believed they were witnessing the future. Crossing the Atlantic by ship required nearly a week.
The Hindenburg could do it in only 2 or 3 days. For wealthy travelers, it quickly became the most prestigious way to travel between Europe and America. Movie stars, business leaders, politicians, journalists, and wealthy tourists all dreamed of flying aboard the magnificent airship. Its first flights proved remarkably successful. Trip after trip, the Hindenburg crossed the Atlantic safely, landing smoothly, departing again. Each successful journey strengthened public confidence. Passengers praised the comfort, the quietness, the breathtaking views above the clouds. Many believed airships represented the next great era of transportation. Few people questioned whether hydrogen was truly safe. Yes, hydrogen was highly flammable, but the Zeppelin company insisted their engineering made accidents virtually impossible. Years of successful flights seemed to prove them right. The Hindenburg became more than an aircraft. It became a symbol of innovation, national pride, luxury, and mankind's belief that technology could conquer the skies. But history has a cruel habit of waiting until confidence reaches its highest point before reminding humanity how fragile even our greatest achievements can be.
On the evening of May 3, 1937, the Hindenburg prepared to leave Frankfurt, Germany for another routine flight across the Atlantic Ocean. For the crew, it was simply another scheduled journey. For the passengers, it was the beginning of what many believed would become the greatest travel experience of their lives. No one standing beneath the massive airship that evening imagined they were about to become part of history. The giant Zeppelin towered above the terminal like a floating skyscraper. Floodlights reflected from its polished silver skin. Ground crews hurried beneath its enormous frame, completing final inspections. Engineers carefully checked the engines. Officers reviewed weather reports. Stewards prepared luxurious cabins. Everything appeared perfectly normal. Inside, the atmosphere was elegant. Passengers settled into beautifully furnished lounges. Some unpacked their luggage. Others admired the incredible views through the giant observation windows. Conversations filled the dining room. Champagne glasses clinked. Laughter echoed softly through the corridors. Flying aboard the Hindenburg wasn't simply transportation, it was an experience reserved for the wealthy and the fortunate. The cabins were surprisingly comfortable. Large windows allowed passengers to watch Europe slowly disappear beneath them. Fine meals were served on white tablecloths. Professional chefs prepared multi-course dinners. Every detail reflected luxury. Unlike noisy airplanes, the Hindenburg moved through the sky with remarkable silence. Passengers could hold normal conversations without raising their voices. Many described the sensation as floating rather than flying. Among those on board were businessmen traveling to America, journalists, tourists, families, and people simply fascinated by experiencing the world's greatest airship. The crew consisted of highly trained professionals. Most had completed numerous successful Atlantic crossings. Their confidence came from experience. Captain Max Pruss, one of Germany's most respected airship commanders, oversaw the voyage. He trusted his crew. He trusted the Hindenburg, and he believed this crossing would end just like every other successful mission before it. At precisely 8:16 p.m., the giant airship slowly lifted away from Frankfurt. Thousands of spectators watched as the enormous silver vessel floated gracefully into the evening sky. Its 4 powerful diesel engines gradually increased speed. The Hindenburg pointed west, toward America. Below them, Germany slowly disappeared. Ahead, more than 3,600 miles of open Atlantic Ocean. For nearly 3 days, everything went according to plan. Passengers enjoyed breakfast while watching endless clouds drift below. Some spent hours writing letters. Others played cards. Many simply sat beside the observation windows, watching one of the most breathtaking views on Earth.
Crew members performed routine maintenance. Engine temperatures remained normal. Hydrogen pressure remained stable. Navigation instruments showed no serious concerns. Weather reports indicated occasional headwinds, but nothing dangerous. The Hindenburg had experienced worse conditions before. No one worried. During the voyage, passengers formed friendships. Children explored the corridors. Photographers captured unforgettable moments. Crew members smiled confidently as they answered questions about life aboard the world's largest aircraft. Meanwhile, far ahead, across the Atlantic, the weather over Lakehurst Naval Air Station in New Jersey was becoming increasingly unpredictable. Thunderstorms moved through the area, strong winds shifted direction, rain clouds gathered over the landing field. Ground crews closely monitored every weather update. Captain Pruss received radio messages advising him to delay the landing until conditions improved. He agreed. Rather than rushing toward danger, the Hindenburg slowed its approach. For several hours, the giant airship circled offshore, waiting patiently. Passengers weren't concerned. Small delays were common. Many remained inside the lounge. Others stood beside the windows, watching the coastline of America finally appear on the horizon. Excitement filled the cabins. Their journey was almost over. They had crossed an entire ocean. Soon, friends and family would greet them. No one knew that only minutes remained before history would change forever. The skies above New Jersey slowly began to clear. Rain weakened, visibility improved. Ground crews received final instructions. Landing preparations began. Captain Pruss turned the Hindenburg toward Lakehurst Naval Air Station. The massive silver airship descended gracefully from the evening sky. From the ground, hundreds of spectators looked upward. Photographers prepared their cameras. News reporters adjusted their equipment. Everything appeared peaceful. Everything appeared routine. No one, not the passengers, not the crew, not the people waiting below, could possibly imagine that within the next few minutes, the most famous airship ever built would become the most infamous.
By the evening of May 6, 1937, the Hindenburg had finally arrived over Lakehurst Naval Air Station in New Jersey. The rain had almost stopped. The storm clouds were breaking apart. A cool breeze drifted across the landing field. To everyone watching below, it looked like the perfect ending to another successful Atlantic crossing. The giant silver airship floated majestically through the evening sky. Its polished aluminum skin reflected the fading sunlight. From a distance, it looked almost magical. Crowds gathered behind the barriers. Children pointed excitedly toward the sky. Photographers adjusted their cameras. Newspaper reporters prepared to document yet another routine arrival. The Hindenburg had completed dozens of successful flights. There was no reason to expect anything different today. Inside the airship, passengers began collecting their belongings. Suitcases were closed. Coats were buttoned. People smiled as they looked through the observation windows. Some could already recognize the trees surrounding the airfield. Others searched for the crowd below, hoping to spot family members waiting for them. The atmosphere remained calm, relaxed, almost joyful. Captain Max Pruss carefully guided the enormous airship toward its landing position. The landing procedure required extraordinary precision. Unlike airplanes, an airship couldn't simply touch the ground. It had to be balanced perfectly. Crew members adjusted ballast. Engineers shifted weight. The engines changed speed. Every movement was calculated. Every command followed years of experience. As the Hindenburg descended, ground crews rushed into position. More than 200 trained sailors waited below. Each held thick landing ropes. Their job was to secure the airship safely to its mooring mast. Everything appeared normal. Everything appeared under control. Then, at approximately 7:25 p.m., witnesses noticed something unusual. Several people reported seeing a faint ripple near the upper rear section of the airship.
Others later claimed they saw a small blue glow. Some described tiny sparks. Others saw nothing at all. To this day, no one knows exactly what happened during those final seconds. Then, without warning, a bright flash appeared near the tail. For a fraction of a second, everything stood still. Then, the impossible happened. A massive explosion of flame erupted across the top of the Hindenburg. Brilliant orange fire raced through the hydrogen-filled cells at terrifying speed. Within seconds, the entire rear section was burning. Passengers inside barely had time to understand what was happening. The elegant corridors disappeared behind walls of fire. Windows shattered, furniture collapsed, the airship lurched violently. Crew members fought desperately to keep control, but it was already too late. The flames spread faster than anyone had ever imagined possible. Hydrogen ignited almost instantly. The enormous structure became a blazing torch suspended in the evening sky. Below, the crowd froze. Some people couldn't believe what they were seeing. Others screamed. Photographers instinctively pressed their camera shutters. Journalists stood speechless. The landing field erupted into complete chaos. One of the most famous voices in broadcasting history captured the horror. Radio reporter Herbert Morrison, who had been calmly describing the landing only moments earlier, suddenly cried out in disbelief. His emotional reaction would become one of the most haunting recordings ever preserved. The Hindenburg's massive frame began collapsing inward. Burning aluminum beams twisted under intense heat. The nose briefly pointed upward as the rear crashed toward the ground. Passengers trapped inside faced impossible choices. Some remained inside, hoping the airship would land. Others climbed toward windows. Several jumped from dangerous heights, choosing broken bones over certain death in the flames. Crew members continued helping passengers even as the structure collapsed around them. Ground crews ignored the danger. They ran directly toward the burning wreckage. Firefighters rushed forward. Rescue workers pulled survivors from the twisted metal. Dense black smoke covered the landing field. The elegant flying palace that had represented the future of transportation was disappearing before the eyes of the world. From the first visible flame to the moment the Hindenburg rested on the ground, only 34 seconds had passed. 34 seconds were enough to destroy humanity's greatest airship. 34 seconds were enough to end an entire era of aviation. But for those who survived, the nightmare was only beginning.
The fire was finally out, but the nightmare had only begun. The twisted remains of the Hindenburg lay across the landing field like the skeleton of a fallen giant. Only minutes earlier, it had been the most magnificent aircraft ever built. Now, it was nothing more than burned metal, smoke, ash, and silence. Rescue workers moved carefully through the wreckage. Some passengers escaped by jumping before the airship completely collapsed. Others crawled through broken windows. Several crew members ignored their own injuries, returning again and again into the burning wreckage to save strangers. The courage displayed that evening would later become one of the most inspiring chapters of the disaster. One flight attendant carried injured passengers to safety until he could barely stand. Ground crew members rushed toward walls of fire without hesitation. Navy personnel formed rescue teams within seconds. Doctors treated victims directly on the grass beside the wreckage. Many survivors were badly burned. Others suffered broken bones from jumping nearly 50 feet to the ground. Some escaped with only minor injuries. Others would carry physical and emotional scars for the rest of their lives. Out of the 97 people aboard the Hindenburg, 62 survived. 35 passengers and crew lost their lives. One member of the ground crew was also killed. For a disaster so visually terrifying, many people later found those numbers surprising. The reason was time. Although the flames spread with incredible speed, the airship did not explode like a bomb. Instead, its enormous framework slowly settled toward the ground as it burned. That brief descent, lasting only seconds, gave dozens of people the chance to escape. For many survivors, those few seconds made the difference between life and death. Newspapers around the world published horrifying photographs the very next morning. Millions of people stared at images showing the burning airship collapsing from the sky. The photographs appeared on front pages across America, Europe, and beyond. Radio stations replayed Herbert Morrison's emotional broadcast again and again. People who had never seen an airship suddenly knew exactly what the Hindenburg was, not because of its luxury, not because of its engineering, but because of its destruction. Almost overnight, public confidence in hydrogen airships disappeared. People who had once dreamed of flying aboard Zeppelins now feared them. Reservations were canceled. Future passengers changed their minds. Airship travel, which had seemed destined to dominate international transportation, suddenly appeared dangerous, unacceptable, obsolete. But one question remained unanswered. What actually caused the fire? Investigators immediately arrived at Lakehurst. The wreckage was carefully examined. Witnesses were interviewed. Crew members described everything they remembered. Engineers searched for evidence among the burned metal. Yet almost immediately, different theories began to emerge. Some believed static electricity had ignited leaking hydrogen after the airship flew through stormy weather. Others suspected a tiny hydrogen leak near the tail had created the perfect conditions for disaster. Some investigators examined whether damaged wiring could have produced a spark. There were even rumors of sabotage. Because the Hindenburg carried enormous symbolic importance for Nazi Germany, some believed an enemy agent might have planted a bomb. But despite extensive investigations, no bomb fragments were ever found. No convincing evidence of sabotage was discovered. As years passed, new scientific studies introduced additional theories. Some researchers argued that the highly flammable coating covering the outer skin may have contributed to the rapid spread of the flames. Others continued to believe hydrogen remained the primary cause. Even today, historians and engineers still debate exactly how the disaster began. The truth is, no single explanation has ever been universally accepted. Nearly 90 years later, the Hindenburg still keeps part of its secret, and perhaps it always will. But while investigators searched for answers, the disaster had already changed the future forever. Because one tragedy was enough to bring an entire era of aviation to an end. When the fires at Lakehurst finally died, something far greater than the Hindenburg had been lost. An entire dream had gone up in flames. For nearly 40 years, the world had believed giant airships represented the future of transportation. They crossed oceans, connected continents, carried presidents, business leaders, journalists, and wealthy travelers through the skies in unmatched comfort. Many experts believed airports of the future would be filled with enormous Zeppelins floating gracefully above cities around the world. That future ended on May 6, 1937. Within hours of the disaster, governments demanded answers. Airship companies canceled scheduled flights. Passengers requested refunds. Insurance companies reevaluated every airship they had ever written. Around the world, public confidence vanished almost overnight. People no longer saw magnificent flying giants. They saw floating bombs. The Hindenburg had become more than a disaster. It had become a warning. In Germany, the Zeppelin company faced a devastating reality. The world's most advanced airship, its greatest achievement, had become its greatest failure.
Plans for future passenger airships quietly disappeared. Construction projects were canceled. Engineers who had dedicated their lives to lighter-than-air flight watched decades of innovation collapse in a matter of weeks. There was one question many people continued asking. Why had Germany used hydrogen when everyone knew it was highly flammable? The answer was political. The safest lifting gas was helium. Unlike hydrogen, helium does not burn. American scientists had already proven it was ideal for passenger airships, but during the 1930s, the United States controlled almost all of the world's helium supply. Because of growing political tensions with Nazi Germany, America refused to export helium. Without access to helium, German engineers had little choice. They continued using hydrogen, fully aware of the risks, believing careful engineering would keep passengers safe. For years, that belief appeared correct, until Lakehurst. The disaster also changed aviation itself. At the very same time airships were reaching their peak, airplanes were improving rapidly. Aircraft became faster, more reliable, more efficient. Within only a few years, long-distance passenger airplanes began replacing luxury airships altogether. What once required 3 days aboard the Hindenburg would soon take less than 1 day aboard modern aircraft. The age of the Zeppelin quietly faded into history. But the Hindenburg never disappeared from public memory. Its haunting photographs, its unforgettable radio broadcast, and its dramatic final moments became symbols recognized across generations. Books were written, documentaries were produced, movies recreated the disaster. Engineers continued studying the wreckage, historians continued debating its true cause. Even today, no discussion of aviation history is complete without mentioning the Hindenburg. Its story reminds us that humanity's greatest achievements often exist beside enormous risks. Innovation can inspire the world, but confidence without understanding every danger can lead to tragedy. The Hindenburg was not simply an airship, it was a masterpiece of engineering, a symbol of national pride, a floating luxury hotel, and for a brief moment, it convinced the world that the future belonged to giant ships sailing through the sky. Instead, its destruction reshaped aviation forever. Today, nearly 90 years later, visitors still stand at Lakehurst, looking across the quiet field where history changed in just 34 seconds. There is no towering silver airship above them. Only memories, questions that remain unanswered, and a reminder that history is often written not only by our greatest successes, but by the disasters that force humanity to build a safer future. The Hindenburg flew across an ocean, but it was only 34 seconds that made it immortal. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this documentary and want more true historical stories told in cinematic detail, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Which historical disaster should we uncover next?